I just want to talk about the recent changes in the number of cases with the coronavirus, which is renamed basically. I just wanted to give you a further more insight into it. I hold an MSc in mathematical science distinction, and one of my analysis was mathematical biology on the spread of epidemiology. And I have some background in chemistry and the formations of certain pharmaceuticals. Okay. Antiviral drug utilization of C12H22M409, on which I will propose as our new antiviral drug. And basically, that scientists are working in the creation of a vaccine which is suitable candidate for individuals. I have proposed the resilience against Oseltamivir, Samivir, against the resistance to SARS, H1N1, H7N9, and MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. In regards to the reconstruction organization of the name from WHO Director, the name given for the virus, which has impacted and caused psychological and economical impact on the vulnerability to health workers and humanity, has named nCoV, which known as the new novel coronavirus, to COVID 2019, which leaves less stigmatization and prejudice on other professional scientific names. Biologists and epidemiologists are working effectively to control and maintain the spread of the virus. Strain is airborne, and which has the ability to be from the source location of Wuhan market, and which scientists have previously instigated the correspondence with bats and cavy cats, on which from this presence, the full outcome and the reservoir of the presence of the source for the host is not very known. On Chinese scientists in Hong Kong and Asia, where scientists collaborate together as experts have unraveled and unlocked the genetic sequence and associated relation with the sequence of the viral genome respect to bats. Then the SARS, one other viral strain that caused complicated respiratory illness to human transmission, with SARS 2003 is associated with severe acute respiratory illness and how complicated which led to fatigue, muscle ache, and bacterial bronchitis, which results in pneumonia. The associated reports analysis with the proportion age groups ranges mainly targets the vulnerable, with increased age from 50 years onwards in the majority cases. There's no association with that susceptibility due to the age. That there has been a global investigation from the CDC, known as the Center of Disease and Control, and WHO, which is internationally globally known as World Health Organization, that young, healthy, immune individuals are susceptible to transmission infection from the coronavirus or COVID 2019 novel coronavirus. There has been a sharp accumulation rise in the number of new infected cases reported from the epicenter of infection. I may instigate where the rate of transmission will see the fluctuation in the number of cases that reported by the Chinese Health Authority due to the asymptotic transmission to medical officers with no signs and transparency in the infection. From epidemiologists and worldwide experts in the distribution and deviation of susceptible routes of transmission, the WHO are working with all countries to disrupt and inhibit the antigen of the novel from human transmission, which is to prevent the virus from infecting interaction with hosts. So to prevent the spread of virus, or specialists and epidemiologists on the suggestion of large clusters on which worldwide global countries have postponed and made cancellations of important events which mitigate the vulnerability of the human-to-human infection and transmission of the virus. This will have impact on the financial, economical stability on a global scale, which health of humanity is priority, and medical experts are working in collaborative nature better advise in testing and methodologies and strategies in test phase for patients susceptible measure preventions from medical experts. The medical experts in Wuhan province has test patients from RNA nucleic acid, on which has been transferable towards the utilization of chest CRT scans to diagnosis of patients for susceptible coronavirus COVID 2019. Most countries have implemented quarantine measures on susceptible cases, which these 14 days incubation period, which law authorities has the right to the extension of 24 period, and which the medical experts monitors the patient's health and its susceptibility and transmission to virus COVID-19 novel coronavirus. There's an accumulation of the mortality rate on which Medical experts' analysis and autopsy associated with the coronavirus or health complications, which medical experts suggested that immunity of other health and respiratory illness associated with weakened immune system, which impacted on the fatality of patients that are treated by the medical experts in the hospital. There's individuals which are quarantined in Japan on a cruise ship due to reports by International Health in which a showed case of the nCoV 2019 virus, or the individual patient's susceptibility being tested positive or negative, depending on the confirmation of the outcome of the result. There's been report of the passing of the elderly individual susceptible to coronavirus. The social risk assessment associated with passenger in clusters, which increased the feasibility of the epidemic, as due to aerosol and airborne transmission from droplets in circulation for air on the cruise ship has increased the transmission of virus, to which the virus can replicate in the host cell, infect others from the pipes of the air conditioners, which give the accessibility and trajectory for the infection. International health and leading experts, WHO, World Health Organization, proposed the quarantine of the passengers for a 14-day period and decline the inhibit for other cruise ships to depart and incline on other foreign soil, on which the form from the reiteration and confirmation. A third cruise lines were able to port at Cambodia on the strict control regulations, on which all passengers on board by medical experts have been tested, no confirmation of association with the nCoV 2019. There is objective that to restrict the propagation of the virus, the nCoV of the novel coronavirus, associated with the immobilization, total restriction of immobilization from land and aviation travels to ships, restriction on blocked access to the host, which will have the detrimental and negative impact on the financial economy. Medical experts have suggested that the virus has caused aerosol transfer through small particles, which give vulnerability transmissible in the air on small things, long durations and length to the infected host cell. Medical epidemiologists are closely monitoring the distribution of transmissible factors associated with the nCoV 2019 virus strain, and which has the ability to transmit the virus, which propagate through the nasal of the small ciliary hairs, which result in bacterial infection and inflammation of the nose and the trachea, and will invade the epithelial cells in the alveolus, which leads to minor symptoms as visible. Leads to minor symptoms like pneumonia and severe symptoms like pneumonia and CPRS. And that's the virus enters the cell in your lungs with replicate. Virus is a protein of RNA strands which acts as an intelligent mechanism, and its agility and sustainability and proficiency, intelligence and capacity invade your cells. Use your cells as DNA apparatus in the nuclei of the host cell and replicate new DNA from RNA transcription via various biological processes by the utilization capacity of normal nucleus and DNA replication and cumulative quantitative amount of the variant which makes us ill. Scientists and experts have further understand the molecular biology of the virus, on which understand the mechanism and lifestyle virus when it enters the host cell, will further give us insight on the preventive and treating and efficient medicine to counteract the situation. Medical experts, by understanding the initial phase of the infection and propagation to cell membrane, scientists have utilised antiviral drugs. Antiviral drugs is to disable and prevent and inhibit the replication of variant or the transmission of the infection and propagation of variant, even to invade other cells which make us ill and give us complicated health complications. Antiviral drug, for example, SARS, which is severe acute respiratory, MERS, which is Middle Eastern respiratory, which has similar characteristics to novel corona and members of the groups, is to inhibit the spikes of protein, M&S protein, on which virologists and biological molecular chemists understand that on the outer surface structures of virus, they are made up of glycoproteins, on which the HA hemagglutinin, which is associated with the hemagglutinin glycoproteins, bind at the receptive residue of the host cell. On the outer membrane, there's salicylic acid known as Neu5, N-acetyl neumanniric acid, and HA allows the initial stage of propagation to enter the host via the process called endocytitis, and that after complication and procedure, the protein synthesis and transcription all pieces joined together from the ribosome and limosome, which is associated with variation factors associated with acidity and pH, known as the measure of the hydrogen concentration. I may reiterate that ACE2 receptors, which scientists has validated the claim that due to the variation of age groups and nationalities and ethnicities of Asian to Caucasian origin associated, there's no association that ACE2 receptors are less resistant to other age ethnic groups, on which I may reiterate, and which further analysis is to understand the complications. Neuraadimnase attached to the novel 209 allows the ability to detach from the sialic acid, which is N-acyl neumanniric acid, and cleave away by the introduction of antiviral drugs is to block the interaction, obstruct the mechanism of the Na-glycoprotein, and it remains attached. There's been initially suggestions due to the antigenic shift in the protein had contributing result to mutation resistance at the binding site, which obstructed to the hydrogen bonding between other amino acids. Which constituent amino acid hydrogen bonding is the intermolecular force between lone pairs of oxygen nitrogen, which electron donor proton receptor, and hydrogen, which is associated with polarity. Due to some amino acids exhibit hydrophilic interactions due to interactions with water molecules, which form some form of ionic electrostatic polarization. Scientists have rendered and created transitional phases which similar traits to sialic acid with virus, on which the utilization of oseltamivir, which is an antiviral drugs against things like influenza, H1N1, H7N9, and SARS, including MERS, on which scientists and experts also has demonstrated the utilization of oseltamivir, which is known as Tamiflu, and Salmonella, which is known as Relenza, was quite responsive for patients, but scientists due to the form of resistance of oseltamivir and Tamiflu at the binding site, on which one of the amino acids H274Y, which is the histidine to the tyrosine, remained resistant when constructing and perturbed the equilibrium of the hydrogen bonding associated with the R251, which is argentine of the amino acid, due to hydrophilic interaction, electrostatic repulsions at the surface area of the COVID virus, on which Salmonella and Lambda oseltamivir acts as an inhibitor, which is a neuroadimnase inhibitor, ensure the reiteration of the importance that constitutes sialic acid that the antiviral drugs remain bounded to the glycoproteins at the residue to prevent the replication of the variant from infection of other host cells that will make us ill and weak. There are 40 groups and families of sialic acid on which is associated with the benzene, ring, arene, and possible hydroxyl groups, OH carboxyl groups, COOH, OSAL groups, RCC, double bond 0, methyl, and acyl groups, NHC, double 0, R, double bond CH3, and the amino acid groups N-acyl acid, which is electric is. Which is known as antiviral drugs. Oseltamivir is C16, N28, N2O4, which has the ester cleave from the carboxylate amino group, N-acyl group, and a hydroxyl group with a R functional group. From analysis that the molecular structure of the and another form of antiviral utilization is Relenza, which is 5-acetimido, 4-guanido, 6-1,2,3 trihydroxyl, propyl 5,6 dihydro, 4-H-pyran 2-carboxylic acid, which is known as C12H20N4007, which is the carbon, the hydrogen, and nitrogen oxygen atom, respectively. From analysis that molecular structure and the antiviral drug does not show much association with the sialic. I may reiterate my hypothetical analysis of the situation that due to the association with the molecular structure of the oseltamivir, which is restricted to resistance due to mutation at the amino acid, the binding site of which to inhibit the Neuraadimnase from detaching from the sialic acid, basically, on which there's resistance due to repulsion. I may reiterate that the molecular structure of oseltamivir is C16N28 N2O4, which shows no attributions, not much association to the molecular structure of sialic acid, which is known as which is C11H19N09. Okay. So basically, for the analysis of molecular antiviral, there's no association with the RCL being attached carboxylate. When proposed sialic structure due to the mutation rendering interaction with the H274Y for the SARS epidemic has resulted in resistance at the binding site, in which the utilisation of antiviral drugs as the neumanniric inhibitor against SARS outbreak, which was not very efficient for patients. Another lens antiviral utilised and proposed was dissociated to the model molecular form study known as Oseltamivir, which had amino function groups attached to it. From further analysis and research, I proposed such a molecular structure in the additional phase of an NA-cell group replacing the NA-cell group by replaced by NHCOR. I replaced in form of an NA-cell glycol group, which is NHCOOH interaction wall molecules, and NH2NH plus amino group remains intact and showed the electrostatic interaction between corresponding 20 amino groups of the tyrosine, phenylalanine, glutamic acid, aspartic acid, asparagine, proline, which exhibit hydrophilic, hydrophobic, amino acidic behaviors. I will propose antiviral drugs known as a C12H22N409, which forms a better association with our salicylic acid, which is known as a transitional state of the salicylic acid representation, the C11H19N09 as my proposed antiviral drug inhibits on which ensure the successful translation at the interactions of the amino acids at the binding site of the residue of the glycoprotein to ensure it remains intact as salicylic acid from the oxygen atom lone pair interaction with amino groups amide and NC via interaction sustainability molecular via hydrogen bonding, hydrophilic and covalent hydrogen bonding, and sulfide bonding. And the electrostatic interactions, ionic variance, and covalence due to electronegativity result in the polarization of lone pairs of electrons in which pairs of electrons repel due to the spin electron to minimize the directions with spins in opposite direction from hunt through, and that to minimize repulsion. The interaction mean have hydrophilic properties which have contributed factor to the binding site of the proposed antiviral drug C12H22M409 ensure to deactivate the efficiency of the NA Neuraadimnase glycoprotein to leave the cell membrane from detachment to give the probability, uncertainty, efficiency, probably a way to infect host cells, not make us ill. Proposed antiviral NA associated transition state as salicylic acid, NA-cell neumanniric acid that binds to the cell membrane as the variant requires the accessibility to infest the host cell for replication of virus. Scientists work on efficient methods to prevent replicated virus to infect other host cells. I may propose such molecular structure which is known as C12H22N409, on which I believe that they will be less resistant due to the mutation at H274, on which the antiviral drug known as Anifa is C12H22M409. Other efficient antiviral drugs shown consistent with lopinavir, octanova, lopinavir, which access different forms of mechanisms, on which ones are protein inhibitors, RNA transcription inhibitors, on which epidemiologists and pharmaceuticologist and chemical molecular biologists are working collaboratively to understand the interactions due to the phase and lifestyle of the virus to prohibit and inhibit DNA RNA replication. So it destructs the feature like octanate, lamifa, and remedifa species testing for humans are approved by the FDA, CDA, on which pharmacy company further research clinical phase of cell biology. Aim was the efficient drug utilized against the disease of Ebola. Medical experts on the combat against the new coronavirus strain and COVID associated with the respiratory situation, on which showed positive results from remission and susceptibility to complicated respiratory problems associated with pneumonia. that due to the consequential factor that there will be no resistance to antigenic shift during amino and RNA DNA restructure bonding, structure molecular sustainability as a respective binding residue with the variant encoded by WHO World Organization salicylic acid C11H19N09, which is N-neumanniric acid. Thank you.